Hello everyone, welcome back to Threptagon. Today we're going to talk about Diogenes Laertius and his version of Pythagoras. Last time we talked about Ovid, today we're going to talk about another source. Who was Diogenes Laertius? So he was a 3rd century AD biographer of ancient philosophers, and he's principally known for his biography, The Lives of the Philosophers. Who was Pythagoras? So we're talking about 9 centuries before the 6th century BC. He was a philosopher, mathematician, musician. Who wasn't Pythagoras? He was a great polymath, one of the most influential figures that has ever lived. Yet he left no written works. Everything we know about him comes from his followers or from people that lived hundreds of years after, like Diogenes Laertius. He's known for the concept of harmony of the spheres, that nature is made up of mathematical harmonies. All right, but he's also known as one of the first vegetarians. And in fact, vegetarians for many centuries were called Pythagoreans. And he had many dietary laws for his followers. Now, what does Diogenes Laertius say about Pythagoras? What he says is contradictory. He simply reports all the records he can find. People say this about him, people say that about him. And not every source portrays him as a vegetarian. So we'll take a look into it. So here he talks against eating the heart of animals and certain fish as well as beans. And above all things, he used to prohibit the eating of Erythinus and the Melanurus. These are 2 types of fish. Okay. And also he enjoined his disciples to abstain from the hearts of animals and from beans. And Aristotle informs us that he sometimes used also to add to these prohibitions paunches and mullet, or types of fish. And some authors assert that he himself used to be contented with honey and honeycomb and bread, and that he never drank wine in the daytime. So once again, we have contradictory evidence. We have saying that he prohibited certain fish, implying not all fish, telling disciples not to eat the hearts of meat, but implying, so the hearts of animals, but implying that other types of meat might be all right. And once again, the famous prohibition against beans that we're going to look at later. Right, and then some authors, he's not telling us who here, but some authors assert that all he ate was honey and bread. Okay, once again, not vegan, vegetarian, but that he had a simple diet. More contradictions. But some, however, assert that he did sacrifice animals. Aristoxenus, however, affirms that he permitted the eating of all other animals and only abstained from oxen used in agriculture and from rams. And we see this kind of prohibition in many societies. You don't want to kill your worker, more or less. I mean, if you have an agricultural society and you have oxen are doing all the work, you're not going to kill and eat them because it would be like, dismembering your tractor and eating its parts. I mean, it doesn't make sense from an economic point of view. So once again, this Aristoxenus seems to be very doubtful of the vegetarianism of Pythagoras. Coming back to the famous beans, all right, as Aristotle says in his treatise on beans, that Pythagoras enjoined his disciples to abstain from beans, either because they resemble some part of the human body, or because they are like the gates of hell, for they are the only plants without parts. I'm going to say here, I don't know what he means without parts, but anyway, so we have 2 reasons already, or because they dry up other plants, or because they're representatives of universal nature, or because they're used in elections and oligarchical governments. So we have many reasons. You might just see this and think it's crazy. This man tells his followers not to eat beans on a vegetarian diet, or they get protein deficient, but there might be some political reason or religious reason, or like anatomical reason. They look kind of like human body parts. Like the kidney bean famously looks like a kidney. That's why it's called kidney bean. Um, so there seems to be a myriad of possible reasons. Okay. And then here we come back to prohibitions against certain types of fish. The Pythagoreans were also forbidden to eat of all fish that were sacred, on the ground that the same animals ought not to be served up before both gods and men. So once again, this is showing something that is very contrary to ethical vegetarianism, really. I mean, saying that yes, you could sacrifice certain fish, or people. You got to think about the ancient pagan world. They were sacrificing certain fish to certain gods, um, but then they wouldn't eat them because they're sacred animals to the gods. So anyway, I appreciate you for watching. Um, if you like this video, be sure to give it a like, comment, subscribe. Um, so if you have any thoughts about why he would come up with these certain dietary restrictions, why he restricted beans, was he really a vegetarian as we would consider today? He's definitely not a vegan. He's not even a real vegetarian based on these sources. I mean, maybe his followers were eating other things, but supposedly he was just eating his bread and honey. But his followers maybe were eating meat, but certain meats, certain fish, and not others. So anyway, tell me what you think about this contradictory but very influential figure in human history. All right, thanks again. Bye bye.